What's going on, guys? It's Scott here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. Today I have something a little different to share with you guys. This is our latest remastered build, but unlike all those before it, we've remastered this bad boy with an assortment of game-changing mods. This is The Witcher, inspired by the series of the same name and the character of Geralt. The Witcher has come to Skyrim in search of his lost love and his missing daughter. The bandits of the north won't know what hit them when the White Wolf passes through, as he is no mere mortal. His mother was a powerful sorceress, and the Witcher fights with inhuman speed and precision, dicing his foes with sharpened steel, slaying beasts with a blade of silver, and unleashing the hidden power of signs on anything that stands in his way. He can infiltrate the minds of the most formidable mages, blast them off their feet, encase them in a magical shield, and roast everything else with powerful fire destruction spells. The Witcher is the ultimate all-rounder, and thanks to the Ordinator perk overhaul, his reputation is proven true in combat. When he isn't dealing with pesky bandits, he's making an honest living, protecting the common folk from the beasts that blight the land. And with some choice mods, the dangers lurking in Skyrim's wilderness will be the perfect match for The Witcher. The mods we'll be using for this build include the alternate start mod for role-playing purposes, the Andromeda Standing Stones of Skyrim for all new Standing Stone effects, and the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod for more unique racial differences. There's the Ordinator perk overhaul for a complete reimagining of The Witcher's playstyle. With this mod, Geralt will have a ton of new perks, making him a completely new experience for those of you who happen to play the old build. We've got the Apocalypse Magic of Skyrim mod for a variety of new spells. Then there's the Grandmaster Ursine armor mod to give us our endgame Witcher armor. We also have the Immersive Armors mod. This is because we can find a set in here which is perfect for the early game. Lastly, we have the Beasts of Tamriel mod for more monsters to hunt in your journeys. You can also add any other monster mods you like. A couple we've tried here at FudgeMuppet that we could recommend are the Mahale Monsters mods. There's the Minotaur mod and the Old Gods of the Hunt mod. The Old Gods of the Hunt mod adds creatures of the Wild Hunt that share a striking resemblance to the Leshens of The Witcher, and you can see these mods in action by watching our videos on Minotaurs and the Wild Hunt. There's also a video dedicated to the Leshens of The Witcher on the channel, which you could check out too, along with a whole lore series that we've been doing here. But that is all of the mods. Links to those can be found just below in the description, along with timestamps to help you navigate throughout the video. Let's now get things started with The Witcher's race, standing stone, and stats. The Witcher is a Breton, and with the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod, this means he will start the game with the following stats. He'll have 95 base health, 105 magicka, 100 stamina, he'll have 0.75% health regen, 3.125% magicka regen, 4.75% stamina regen, and 300 carry weight. As a Breton, he'll also have the following abilities. The Grail of Brittany is a lost artifact hidden in Skyrim, and finding it grants boosts to magicka and stamina regen. The spell Mantle ability grants a resistance to magic, allowing Geralt to absorb most incoming spells at low magicka. With the Stones of Galen, each standing stone grants its own bonus effect, and the unlockable power is called Shared Ancestry. To get it, discover 10 standing stones. This power can be used once per day and gives the temporary ability to gain the racial power of a target man or mer. As for standing stones, we've got two choices. With the Andromeda Standing Stones of Skyrim mod, both of these have quite unique effects. There's the Shadow Stone, which adds the Blur ability. This passive increases movement speed by 20% in combat. This is massive for a Witcher known for speed and agility. There's also Hide in the Shadows, which boosts sneaking and sneak attacks by 20% when near a wall or obstacle, but that one really isn't relevant. The other stone is the Steed. The Explorer ability grants 50 extra carry weight and adds random nearby landmarks to the map, meaning more ingredients and beast trophies to carry. Gallop allows you to move 40% faster and regenerate stamina 50% faster when out of combat, and this effect is handy for a Witcher who needs to track and hunt beasts across all kinds of terrain. Which of these two stones to take is up to you. Feel free to swap between them as you see fit. The Witcher's stat spread will be 40% health to stay alive alongside his armor, 30% stamina for power attacks and improved damage, and then 30% magicka for casting all of your spells. A huge investment isn't essential here, as your perk choices will make novice and apprentice spells free to cast. I've mentioned this in the intro, but here is one more reminder. The contents of this backstory aren't going to be accurate to the namesake's true origins. This build is inspired by Geralt of Rivia, and we've tailored him to fit in as seamlessly as possible with the Elder Scrolls universe, while maintaining his defining characteristics. Geralt, the Witcher, was born in a small settlement of High Rock known as Rivia. The settlement was so insignificant that no map in Tamriel was detailed enough to feature it. Geralt was put at an immediate disadvantage in his life, for he was very different to the common Breton. He lacked the familiar dark or blonde hair of the Bretons, and his eyes weren't blue, brown, or even green. The boy was born with hair white as snow and eyes of bright yellow. Even his pupils were deformed. Rather than round, they were vertical, narrow, like a cat's. When he was born, many had pointed fingers at his mother, though not publicly, for they wouldn't dare insult her to her face. Geralt's mother was a sorceress, practicing all kinds of arcane arts, even spanning to alchemy. Her daily profession involved selling potions to the locals, healing their ailments legitimately. However, it was no secret that the sorceress had brewed concoctions to help her deal with the sickness and pain that came along with her pregnancy. Apparently, she had consumed brews containing secret mushrooms and herbs, and many speculated that this caused the physical mutations of her child's hair and eyes. Geralt differed from his peers in more ways than just his facial features. Mainly, he excelled physically. Whatever negative traits his mother's magical experiments had thrust upon him seemed to be compensated by aerobic fitness far exceeding that of anyone else in the village, including their only resident knight. One spring, when Geralt was in his teenage years, the settlement of Rivia was plagued by aggressive spriggans, trolls, and wolves. The reason for the trouble was unclear, but multiple cases had occurred of serfs working in the fields only to be taken and killed by one of the beasts. For such a small population, even one fatality was big news in Rivia. The resident knight rode to Camlorn, the nearest city, to ask for help. Thankfully, their plea was answered, and Camlorn's Monster Hunter Guild was sent to deal with the plights. Geralt, with his favourite sword slung over his shoulder, left the safety of the settlement's palisades to watch the action. His sword had only ever been used to cut at straw dummies, yet he longed for a chance to show his mettle, drawing the blood of a real foe. He sat on a hill and watched the men slay trolls, spriggans, and wolves. They fought like a cohesive unit, protecting one another's blind spots, and all seemed to be going to plan until the leader of the seemingly unorganized predators emerged, a werewolf in the flesh. In the light of day, Geralt couldn't believe his eyes. He saw the offensive line of the monster hunters begin to waver, and he sensed that they needed aid. He leaped to his feet and ran down the hill towards the fight. He slowed to a walk and crept behind the howling wolf, which was clearly picking which monster hunter to kill next. He drew his sword, and before the werewolf could learn of his presence, Geralt thrust the sword through the beast's back, passing the spine and emerging bloodied from its chest. The men cheered and punched the air with their swords, and when the beast fell forward, impaled by the poorly smithed sword, they saw the odd-looking teenager. They offered him a place in their ranks, and they named him the White Wolf for his hair and the beast that he had slain. Geralt wished farewell to the people of his settlement, kissed his mother, and moved to Camlorn. Geralt soon learned that he hated cities. They were too chaotic and noisy. Fortunately, the Monster Hunters Guild had a fortress and headquarters north of the city by the water. It was called the Old Sea Keep, and it was a home Geralt grew to love. In Camlorn, Geralt's eye was caught by a beautiful woman with hair as dark as raven feathers. Her name was Yennefer, and when he approached her, she mistook him for a servant and sent him to fetch her apple juice. For some reason, he obliged, before plucking up the courage to speak to her. By some stroke of luck, or maybe some sorcery he couldn't comprehend, they fell in love and adopted a child which they named Ciri. Some years later, a cult of Altman necromancers became notorious in the Duchy of Camlorn, partially for their choice of apparel, black armor and skull masks, but also for what they preached. Supposedly, the Daedric Prince Vaemina believed the blood of an ashen-haired child held the power to bind Mundus to her realm of quagmire, and the cult set out to find the child. One night, under a full moon, the cult appeared at Geralt and Yennefer's humble homestead. He'd sensed the danger for years, and he'd been prepared for it. He sent Ciri through a hidden passageway to the stables, where she was to take his mare, Roach, to ride for safety. Yen's sorcery proved insufficient and she was captured, but Geralt didn't give in so easily. He cut down countless cultists, but was eventually bested and left to slowly die from the loss of blood. He awoke some days later when members of the guild found him and healed him. His wounds were fixed, but he suffered amnesia, which the hunters were not skilled enough to reverse. All he could remember was the trepidation he felt at the beginning of the fight with the cultists. He knew his daughter and wife were gone, and he had to find them. So he set out on a search across Tamriel, fueling his journey by hunting monsters for gold. Eventually, his search took him to Skyrim. We'll be using the camping in the woods alternate start, as this Witcher is familiar with the hunter's path and is more than capable of taking care of himself in the wilderness. Conveniently, his campsite is within a stone's throw of Helgen, and he will see Alduin in all of his world-eating glory. Geralt will investigate, as dragons are particularly fascinating to witchers. He will continue in the same way he had before reaching Skyrim. He'll hunt monsters in order to protect people of Skyrim and in order to make some money. The ingredients of Skyrim are his best friend, and he will use all of the herbs, mushrooms and plants he can to create potions and poisons. Poisoning his weapons will function like oils in the Witcher games, and the Witcher of the Elder Scrolls universe has learned to consume potions without acquiring toxicity in the process. When using magic, sticking to the spells that are reminiscent of a witch's signs is the best way to go, but of course you can justify using other spells if you'd like, seeing as different universes contain different magic. As for factions, the Dawnguard DLC is a great pick, as their end goal resonates with his values. He will obviously side with the Dawnguard over the vampires. Contrary to what you may initially think, he will not join the companions. While they are fierce warriors of the caliber he can respect, they are as much beasts as they are fighters, and werewolves are a plight in Geralt's eyes. The main story is definitely an option, and while some of you may point out that the witches of the Northern Kingdoms prefer not to fight dragons, in fact we can confirm it with Geralt's own words: if dragons didn't have treasure hoards, not a soul would be interested in them. But the reality in Tamriel is different to that of the Witcher universe. On MODLIST, the dragons here are here to end the world, and that definitely falls under the jurisdiction of a Witcher for protecting the people. So the main story and subsequently the Dragonborn DLC are definitely options. The College of Winterhold may also be worth a visit to improve the intensity of your signs. Now that we have the Witcher's backstory, role-playing and factions sorted out, let's take a look at how this will impact his skills, spells, perks and his overall playstyle. The main skills for this build will be one-handed destruction, illusion, alteration, light armor, smithing and alchemy. Before we get into the specific perks to take from each of his many skills, let's quickly run over the spells you'll want to acquire. First, we want the alteration spell Ebony Flesh and any of the former flesh spells until then. This spell simulates the sign of Quen. Then we have Wither to simulate the sign of Yrden, as it slows enemies. Take any fire spells you want, like Wall of Flames, Standard Flames, or even Fireball and Scorching Hands to simulate Igni. Then of course you can take things like Calm spells or Frenzy spells for Axii. You can of course branch out into any spells from Destruction, Illusion, and Alteration, but we chose to stick with the signs. You can also bring some shouts into the mix. Elemental Fury gives him a boost of speed and agility, fitting for a mutated Witcher. Fire Breath works like his fire destruction spells. Whirlwind Sprint is an option, and Unrelenting Force can be used to replicate the sign of Ard. But with all that said, here are the Witcher's essential perks. First, we have One-Handed, and it would be frivolous to explain why the Witcher is gifted in this skill. Geralt's reputation precedes him wherever he goes, and the most popular talking point when he is in town is his aptitude with a sword of steel or silver. From the One-Handed skill tree, take One-Handed Mastery 2 of 2, Furious Strength, Overrun, Disciplined Fighter, Thundering Blow, Aftershock, Clash of Champions 3 of 3, Crosscut 2 of 2, Falling Sword, Windswept, Into the Dust, Judgment, and Wandering Warrior. The combination of Thundering Blow and Aftershock works well for the Witcher, who strikes fast and frequently. With these perks, every 8 standard attacks in combat lead to your next one-handed power attack, dealing double damage for no stamina cost, and when you deliver that blow, attack speed is increased by 75% for 3 seconds. Following the branch, starting with Clash of Champions, will beef up your effectiveness with swords. Falling Swords causes forward power attacks to make enemies bleed for 20 seconds. Once they drop below 25% health, your attacks against them become criticals, dealing 10 times more damage. Windswept buffs sideways power attacks, which now send enemies flying backwards up to 6 feet. The further they go, the more they hurt. It can do up to 40% more damage. Into the Dust rewards repeated standing power attacks. If you perform the next within 3 seconds of the last, you do 15% more damage, stacking up to 3 times. Finally, Wandering Warrior gives you a permanent 1% bonus to one-handed damage up to 20% whenever you defeat at least 4 humanoids and or animals in a single battle. Witches have impossibly fast reflexes. This feature and their striking eyes see them compared to cats quite often, and nothing hinders reflexes like heavy armor. Instead, the witches dress practically, counting on movement to protect them against more serious blows. From the Light Armor skill tree, go for Light Armor Mastery 2 of 2, as a leaf, Light Armor Fit, Unhindered, Into the Maelstrom, Initiative 2 of 2, Lightning Strike, Keen Senses, Fight or Flight, Survival Instinct, Tempting Fate, Windrunner, War Dancer, Glancing Blows, Spell Dancer, Evasive Leap, and Wild and Free. All of these perks will work as long as you are only wearing light armor. Lightning Strike rewards quick engagements, as during the first 10 seconds of combat, your critical strikes deal 75% more damage. Being aggressive and fast in combat is a trend continuing from the one-handed skill tree. Take perks like Survival Instinct when struck by an unblocked attack or spell. You gain 10% movement speed for 6 seconds, or Tempting Fate, which gives you an additional 20% movement speed if you are not blocking during an incoming power attack. If it misses, you keep the boost until the end of combat, or until you are next hit by a power attack. Windrunner gives you 10% movement speed in combat. Finally, Evasive Leap gives you a second of invincibility when you jump, allowing you to survive any attack during that duration. This has a 5-second cooldown. Beyond the mutations, witches use the power of signs to gain an edge in combat. On the plane of Mundus, the magically gifted use Magicka to achieve the same means. The sign of Igni causes devastating fire damage, and for that reason the Witcher of Tamriel uses Destruction Magic. From this skill tree, grab Destruction Mastery 2 of 2, Harsh Lesson, Combustion 2 of 2, Scarring Burns, Conflagration, Flash Fire, and Scorched Earth. With Conflagration, fire spells ignite the ground beneath targets for 30 seconds. The affected area deals 8 points of damage a second for 3 seconds on contact. With Scorched Earth, enemies killed by fire spells burn to cinders, creating a deadly pyre that burns for 30 seconds. This area deals 50 points of damage a second for 5 seconds on contact. Illusion allows Geralt to access the minds of his foes, bending their will as if under the influence of the Axii sign. From the Illusion skill tree, take Illusion Mastery 2 of 2, Imposing Presence, Wilting, and Neverworld. Imposing Presence gives Geralt an aura which affects all within 40 feet. Illusion spells against those affected are 25% more powerful and 30% longer lasting. On top of this, when Wilting makes these targets lose 200 points of armor and 50% magic resistance when they are calmed. Neverworld allows calmed opponents to enter a dreamlike state, sometimes causing the calm to take effect again after the initial spell has faded. Alteration spells like Ebony Flesh provides witches with inhuman protection beyond the capabilities of man-made armor. From the Alteration skill tree, take Alteration Mastery 2 of 2, Spellblade, Energy Royal, Rend Resistances, Wild Shrines, and Intuitive Magic 2 of 2. Spellblade is perfect for the Witcher, as spells cast make the weapon in his other hand 20% more powerful for 4 seconds. This bonus comes back around with Rend Resistances, as attacks with a weapon reduce the magic resistance of nearby enemies within 10 feet by 15% for 4 seconds. Wild Shrines implements 5 hidden shrines. Finding them gives you permanent boosts to a school of Magicka, making spells from that school 15% more powerful and 30% longer lasting. This perk is a nice homage to the Places of Power from the Witcher series. With Intuitive Magic, Novice and Apprentice spells can now be cast for free. Witchers spend much of their lives on the path, living with their means day by day, tending to their own needs without any help, and Geralt will not find himself in the wilderness being ambushed by wolves while he has nothing but blunt weapons on his person. No, the Witcher is always prepared, and that means learning to craft and improve his own gear. From the Smithing skill tree, go for Smithing Mastery 2 of 2, Merrick Smithing 1 of 2 picking Elven, Expert Smithing 1 of 2 picking Hard Steel, and Exotic Smithing 1 of 2 picking Ebony. Finally, we have the piece that brings it all together. Witches aren't in superior shape to common mortals by mere chance. No, they use what nature has to offer to make their weapons and their bodies as powerful as possible. For Geralt, this is achieved with alchemy. From the alchemy skill tree, take Alchemy Mastery 2 of 2, Physician, Poisoner, Stimulants, Experimenter, Crimson Haze, Bottomless Cup, Alkahest, Green Thumb, Pure Mixture, Witchmaster, Chemical Wedding, and that which does not kill you. With Crimson Haze, consuming a potion will increase your movement speed by 10% for the duration of the potion's effects. Witchmaster adds a touch of chance to the mix, giving you a random powerful side effect for 50% of the time whenever you use a beneficial potion or ingredient. With Chemical Wedding, activating one of these effects has a 50% chance of activating another effect on top of it. Finally, that which does not kill you is an option for when you are very powerful. Be prepared when taking the perk, as you'll take 150 points of damage per second for a whole minute. If you survive, you receive 3 perk points and a permanent 25% bonus to all potions and poisons made. Okay, with all of that taken into consideration, this is how The Witcher will play. It's pretty straightforward and very similar to that of Geralt from the Witcher universe. However, with the addition of the ordinated perk effects, the playstyle is unbelievably satisfying, as your actions constantly buff one another, making you and your weapons move unbelievably fast, and your fire spells are nothing to neglect, as the way they impact the ground and walls can turn a fort's courtyard into a hellish minefield. Simply put, the Witch will attack with constant fast-paced sword strikes with the right hand while casting spells akin to his signs in the left. Once you have the full build set up, the Witcher will truly feel like a man with life-changing mutations. He is quicker than everyone else, stronger than everyone else, and his spells hit harder than any mage in Skyrim could dare to match. The combat approach is simple, but with your many perks, effects, and abilities, the possibilities are countless. As for gear, the Witcher will wear the armor set given to us by the Grandmaster Ursine armor mod. This includes Ursine Light boots, the Ursine Light cuirass, Ursine Light gloves, the large Ursine Light pauldrons, Ursine fur, and an Ursine medallion. Before getting this endgame armor, you can absolutely use the Crimson Archer set of armor from the Immersive Armors mod. This set is also inspired by The Witcher and is even quite reminiscent of the Manticore gear from Blood and Wine. Smith all of this up as much as possible. You'll want to craft and smith up your 2 swords. We have a silver sword, which can be found in the Dordengard DLC, and a simple steel sword. However, you may just choose to use the silver because it really doesn't make a difference in the world of Skyrim. And there you have it, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and want to keep up with the latest Skyrim builds, and give the video a like if you think it deserved one. Don't forget that links to all the mods we've used can be found in the description below, along with timestamps for video navigation. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. My name is Scott, and I'll nerd out with you again next time.